Here with me again this morning to head up that conversation again is Brian Van Hook from the SBDC. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
Thank you, Pete. I'm doing good. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you about this very important topic, and also to get some information out to your listeners in terms of this, issue for small businesses.
Well, let me share a little bit about Brian before we get into our conversation today. Brian, again, is Brian Van Hook, Associate Director of the Florida SBDC at Florida International University. Prior to joining FIU, Brian worked in the United States Senate and in the Office of Technology Policy at the U.S. Department of Commerce. In these roles, he's worked on both creating national policies and assisting individual businesses in the areas of technology, telecom, and, of course, cybersecurity. A native of Louisiana, Brian received an executive certificate in cybersecurity, leadership, and strategy from FIU, and has over 10 years of experience with technology issues. Brian received his MS in International Affairs from Florida State University and his BA from Louisiana State University. I have a question for you, Brian.
Sure.
What is your allegiance, FIU, FSU, or LSU?
That's a tough one. That's a
Man.
tough one. I'm a big fan, obviously, of FIU. Pays the bills. I would say, in terms of football, I'm a big LSU fan. And then also I do follow Florida State. But I would say LSU, it's in my blood.
So what happens when FSU plays LSU? I mean, do you just switch sides? You wear a different hat in each shirt, in jersey per half?
Yeah, I would say in our family that's a really tough one. There is a good split in terms of the family who supports. But in that respect, I think a lot of the Gators and UM fans down here, I go for LSU in that respect.
Yeah, that's a safe bet, man. Exactly. Yeah. That's your default, right?
Yep, that's my default.
Hey, Brian, so much to discuss here today, and we were talking, and for the benefit of all of you tuning in right now, we're seriously considering having a regular segment on cybersecurity. It is huge. It affects all of us. It's affecting the government, as we've been hearing about so much the last few months, and large corporations are affected, but guess what? So are you as a small business owner, and this topic is important for everybody, but I really want to emphasize our entire tone today and directive is to the small business owner, because as you know, my friends, as a small business owner, you're wearing sometimes 15, 18 hats, and one of them is the IT guy in the organization, and you're spread very thinly as an entrepreneur. So we want to let you know, and hopefully by the end of our conversation today, is that if IT is towards the bottom of that list of 15, you got to push it up to probably number 1. And Brian will share some thoughts on that. But before we get into that, can you give us just an overview of what cybersecurity is all about?
In terms of cybersecurity, the bottom line on that is basically protecting your business from hackers, basically protecting your business from folks coming in and breaching your data, breaching your employee information, stealing intellectual property, or setting up your company in terms of ransomware, setting up your company to be kind of blackmailed or ransomed if they kind of hack one of your critical processes or one of your systems. So basically, cybersecurity for a small business is protecting yourself, your assets, the things that you worked hard to create from folks coming in and trying to steal information or steal money from you.
As small business owners, we think a lot, who am I? I'm not a Fortune 500 company. Why would they come after me? What do I have to offer? And most small businesses, we know, do not consider themselves prime targets for cyber attacks. The question is, why would hackers target a small business?
That's a great question. And a lot of the small businesses we work with, they're like, I'm not a big target, I'm not Sony, I'm not Walmart. But for us, there's basically 5 reasons why a hacker would target a small business. The first one is because you're in the supply chain. So small businesses are, contractors, suppliers to larger companies. They also work with the federal government. So actually, if you look at a lot of the high-profile hacks, I think in terms of Sony and some of the other ones, actually the way that they get in is they go through a smaller business to get into the bigger business. They can actually even steal credentials from a small business or get into a web portal that they share and get into the supply chain. So it's a way for them to get to a bigger business that might have a little bit more advanced cybersecurity. So that's one thing to pay attention to. You're a part of a bigger system. Second, you're easier targets. As Pete mentioned very well, they don't have the staff, they don't have the resources, they don't have the time to dedicate to cybersecurity, so it's a little bit easier way to get in. Third, small businesses, you don't think you have information hackers want to steal. You actually have, credit card information, employee information. As I mentioned, you basically have information, financial transaction info on some of these larger businesses. So intellectual property, you have things that hackers want to steal. Fourth, you look at it as a return on investment. We're all businesses, business owners or entrepreneurs here. What they can do is they can basically invest a very small amount of money, but they can get a big return on it. And then lastly, you play the numbers. Just like when you're fishing, you want to throw out a lot of lines to catch a fish. What they do is they basically use social engineering and phishing to catch specific targets. However, most of these attacks nowadays, they're automated. So what they can do is it's indiscriminate, basically targets thousands or millions of victims, and you're one of them. So, in terms of that, they can basically set up small businesses to really get impacted and really kill the business if they're not paying attention to it.
So, my friends, it's very clear that there is a hacker industry. Mm-hmm. Whether you like it or not. And this is not just little, independent people. This is a very sophisticated, you just mentioned, automated. So you don't necessarily have to have someone there that's spying on you. You have these systems already in place that are spying millions of people.
Yeah. And Pete, I would also mention too, in the past it used to be somebody who was very, very sophisticated, had a lot of training. As you mentioned, there's a lot of those folks out there. There's even a lot of state actors such as China and Russia that they develop whole teams, to be hackers and to hack specific targets. But nowadays with technology, you can have somebody that basically has a very basic knowledge of hacking and computers, but they can buy something on the internet, or on the dark web, to basically be able to hack. So they nowadays there's a very low barrier to entry to do some very low level hacking, and that's a scary thing.
It really is scary. Now, you mentioned a couple of things in countries that have made that unfortunately an art form.
Yeah.
All right, but who are the different groups or individuals that initiate cyber attacks specifically on small businesses?
Yeah, and a lot of folks listening today, you would have like an image of your head of a hacker, somebody in a hoodie sitting in a coffee shop, maybe on the younger side, with a cappuccino or something. But actually there's more advanced than that. There's a lot of different folks out there. So basically, you have actually just basic criminals, folks that are gonna have their motivation be money. They want to hack you, get you to pay money to them to release a system. They want to steal information such as health data, employee data, social security numbers that they can sell for money. Obviously, you have hacktivists, so like Anonymous, WikiLeaks doesn't necessarily do hacking, but they serve as like a venue for hacked information. But those are folks that basically are most high profile, and their main goal is to protest, basically to demonstrate, to get revenge on certain groups. Usually because of ideology or politics. Third, you have just straight up espionage. You can think about kind of cloak and dagger, spies. Basically, these are people, either corporate spies that want to steal some, intellectual property. They want to steal information on a company, or it could even be a state actor such as China, stealing information on U.S. Key industries that they can use to kind of boost their local economy. And then lastly, as we've seen kind of in the news and high profile, you basically have state actors. You have like kind of, just basic war where countries such as Russia is the best example. You utilize hacking to destabilize or disrupt one of your economic or political rivals. So the best example with Russia, would be the election, or look at what they did in the former Soviet republics, where they would go in and hack electric grids, they would hack gas lines, they would hack different things, And when they hack an electric grid or they hack a government agency or key infrastructure, that disrupts, the economy, that disrupts the government, and that's a way for them to destabilize. And look at in the future, before you have actually tanks rolling in or missiles flying, you could have a country actually go in and disrupt key things, like put bridges up or do something else that could really make a lot of trouble for folks trying to respond.
Okay, Brian. So I'm a small business. I'm listening to all this morning, and I'm in panic. Mm-hmm. It's like, I what can I do? How do I protect myself? And I continue to hear stories that hackers, once you think you've got them, out of your system, right? Mm-hmm. No pun intended. Then everything's okay again. Yet they continue to go to that next level of going around those security walls. What am I to do as a small business owner today when, and I've got all these things to worry about, my marketing, my financials, and getting clients and everything that is typical to a small business owner, and someone that doesn't have the resources to hire someone to stay on top of all of this. What am I to do?
Yeah, and now that I've gone through kind of the doom and gloom and got you paying attention, maybe pouring a little alcohol in your coffee or something else.
Irish coffee.
Yeah, your Irish coffee.
Or you can have a mimosa too, all right. You got your choice.
Yeah, if you got your mimosa, cheers. But now that I've talked about that, let's talk about some of the resources that are available.
And some answers, right?
And some answers as well. Right. So first off, I would say, locally, our center, the Florida SBDC at FIU, we're here to provide some resources to you, to provide some training, some information. And the great thing is we've got a lot of really great partners on this topic. We partnered last year with FBI Miami and Miami-Dade County to hold a session to kind of get small businesses here locally information, kind of know what's out there. Recently, we had an event, given the high-profile attacks, we had 140 people attend an event with U.S. Secret Service, with Hack Miami, which is a white hat hacker group here. Also,
they're not hackers.
Yeah, they're not. They're basically IT security professionals. They're on the good side.
Right.
But it's actually great because one of the hackers, Rod Soto from Hack Miami, actually did a live hack demo. So he actually showed how you use social engineering. You could go in and hack somebody's Google, get into all their apps, get into their account, and basically take over. So it literally took him 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
And for that, guys, that basically had everybody sitting on their toes. They were ordering more drinks.
Yeah. Give me a double shot, right? Keep the drinks coming, right?
Yeah.
10 minutes. 10 minutes, it's all it takes to ruin possibly 10 years of business.
Yep. And
think about that.
In terms of our center, what we do, as I mentioned, we've got some really great partners that we really try to work with to provide some training events. And we've also developed kind of cybersecurity webinars that we put out there. Actually, if you go to our YouTube channel for Florida SBDC at FIU, we actually have a really good webinar that goes through some of the topics we're talking about today, and we're actually going to even condense it more into little bite-sized bits where somebody has 5 minutes. Let's talk about password protection. Let's talk about this. But the key thing I want to mention to you guys is we have some training materials we've developed on this, like quick questions and answers. We also have partnered with the Michigan SBDC to develop an online self-assessment. It's called smallbusinessbigthreat.com. And you can actually go on, and it's a self-assessment you can run through as a business owner, where you can actually go through and kind of take some scenarios, take some questions, and just see what is your basic awareness, how's your business doing. And also, what I would encourage you to do is to follow us on social media, FIU Entrepreneurship on Facebook, and also at FIU Entrepreneur on Twitter, because what we do is we post upcoming events, upcoming resources there. So it's a great way for folks to get information on that. And also, not just on cybersecurity, but if you have any other help that you need, whether it's access to capital, government contracting, trade, we have 15 consultants in other areas that can help you out with that. And that's available at sbdc.fiu.edu. But the one thing I wanted to leave the guys with before we wrap up,
we still got a couple minutes left.
That's great.
I want to, and we'll go back to all of that. But these programs are great. But can you share with the audience today maybe one tip, one thing that they can do as a preview of what these programs can help them with.
Yeah.
Give us for an example.
That's what I want to do. I want to leave you guys with some takeaways.
Okay.
So first off, let's talk about passwords. Passwords is very basic.
Right.
In terms of password don'ts, basically don't use personal information in a password. So don't use your child's name. Don't use your dog's name. Don't use your, the year you were born. That's something easily somebody can find out through social engineering or hacking some of your other accounts. Don't use the same password for multiple accounts. So look at the Yahoo hack. A lot of people, still have Yahoo accounts. Basically, the hackers were able to get, millions of accounts and their information, their passwords. They can use that password if they can find out you have a Gmail or something else. So it makes you vulnerable, not just on Yahoo, but other ones.
I have something practical to, you just said something there. Don't avoid, if you can, using the same password for everything.
Yep.
Okay. Now, there's an upside to that is that, when you need to put the password, you don't have to figure out, okay, which password that I have for my bank, which password that I use for Facebook, which, it's like we forget our passwords all the time. So how do we handle that part? Practically.
Well, I think the one thing we always mention in terms of coming up with the good password, and I was going to get to it in terms of the do side.
Okay.
But basically, what you want to do is come up with a sentence that's easy for you to remember. So, for example, some folks would say, like, one sentence is, my dog Hannibal will be 7 years in October. And you can write that sentence down, but you don't have to actually, write down what the password is. But then you can pretty much put uppercase, lowercase for those letters and numbers, where it's easier for you to remember, and then you don't have to write it down. Because unfortunately for a lot of folks, Pete, they write it on a Post-it next to the computer. They write it on a Post-it in the drawer, and that's easy for somebody to come in your office and physically get it. Or I was going to say also they do the password save option, where they basically have it already input and just go in.
That's where I was going there. So that, and the question comes, do you want a Google or do you want your computer to remember the password there? People say, yes, of course. That way I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
The problem is convenience is the enemy of security. Basically, convenience is a way for folks to get in and get it. I was going to mention in terms of do's on passwords, you want to use uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. Those are all available to you to make your password more difficult to crack. You want to use a minimum of 8 characters. A lot of systems and companies now, they require more than that, but at minimum you want 8. Regularly change your passwords as well. Just because it's a great password, I think the good example would be like on Seinfeld, where George had a really good ATM password, and basically he didn't want to change it, and he was like trying to scramble around on it. You want to regularly change it up. And then also a key thing that's in advance nowadays is multi-factor authentication. So actually what you can do is you have your physical computer, but before you log in, it has to call or send a text to your cell phone.
Right.
So that way somebody can get your information, but they don't have your cell phone, so they can't get in. And I would say FIU uses that, and our system is a lot more secure because of it. Like every time I log in to access financial information or anything else, they have to call my cell phone, and I have to pick it up and put in a code to log in. So it's actually pretty good.
Well, this again is I love this. What you just said right now. Convenience is the enemy of security, because everybody wants everything to be easy. I don't want to stress out. I don't want to have to go through these 7 steps to do whatever I got to do. Just get me to the bottom line. What's the one step I can do to get to where I want to get to?
Yep.
And that's all great, but when you're talking about this cybersecurity and potentially losing everything you have, okay, and losing your business, okay, if you think it's not going to happen to you, you might be in for a rude awakening, and we don't want that to happen to you. I mean, that's really our strong message here today.
Yeah, and the one thing I forgot to mention on passwords too, Pete, is in terms of passwords, there actually are some apps out there, some different programs that you can do that are password keepers. So actually what you can do is you can have on your phone one app that basically has one password that you put in for that's secure, but then it can keep all of your other passwords. And so I forget off the top of my head.
And how secure is that?
It can be pretty secure because they have a high they have a basically very secure password on it. But it is something where you have to kind of look at the different programs that are out there, because some are more secure than others.
I have to tell you, and I'm not a technology expert at all, but and that's an app, right?
Yeah, there's apps, there's computer programs, there's other things.
That's what I was going to. How secure is that really when you look at it there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's great. You got all these, but yet these hackers, I'm telling you, and you know this better than I do.
Yeah.
Man, okay, we as before, let's say I'm going to use a comparison. I'll go to visit someone at their house and the front door is open. I go right in there. Well, now they put a lock on it, so I can't do that. So, okay, let me figure out how I can get through the house here. I can come and, jam the lock open, or I can go in through the back and get into the sliding glass door. I'll find a way to get in there. And now they have an alarm, so that's going to make it more challenging. It's like they get challenged, and you say, okay, we'll figure it out. We'll take a step back. And then we'll come in again. So we are never, I don't know that we can ever be secure permanently. Yeah. We got to always stay on top of things. And so this is one of those battles that unfortunately, technology is great and it's wonderful, but that's a real downside to technology. And if all of us that are on our smartphones and using our computers and do so much online shopping, okay?
Yeah. I think the best quote on that was, I think it was former FBI Director Robert Mueller, where he said there's two types of businesses: those who have been hacked and those who will be hacked. And so he basically said, this is something you have to pay attention to. The other thing I want to mention is on mobile devices. A lot of businesses now are issuing mobile devices, laptops, phones to employees, or letting them use their own devices. And that's a key weakness for businesses in terms of their security, is having a lot of these devices out there. For example, some companies don't allow people to download third-party apps on their phone. If you get like Pokemon Go or Facebook or something else, depending on how often there are patches from the device, the app makers, or how often the user downloads the patches and updates, that could be a real security weakness, because they could get in through that and get into some other systems. So what we encourage folks to do is to install anti-malware on all mobile devices. Also to review whether you want to have a company policy that you allow those third-party apps on any devices that you're issuing or that are connected to your system. Also require strong authentication and passwords. And very basic, don't use public Wi-Fi. If you go to public Wi-Fi,
exactly.
You're in a coffee shop or something else, somebody could easily get your information. I've been at conferences where folks hack, somebody that's giving a hack demonstration, they would have up, a public Wi-Fi network, and they would be able to see people, hey, did somebody go through Bank of America to check their bank information? I see somebody's doing this or somebody's doing that. So it's a way that people can really get access to your information. I've also seen where they do kind of exercises that they put up like a text. So they say, everybody, if you want this report, text 1234 to this number. And what they do is, it's a real sneaky trick. You text to that number. What they do is they basically come back and they slide themselves into your Outlook contacts on your phone. So basically, whenever they send you an email, most people, if they see an email from somebody they don't know, most folks, common sense, they wouldn't open it or they delete it. What they'll do is they'll send it as somebody that's in the Outlook contacts. So basically, you think you know these people, and you open up the email, click on the link, and then they've got access, or they get you malware or something else. It's a real sneaky trick.
This is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take my laptop, I'm going to close it up, put it in the closet. I'm going to get rid of my smartphone. I'm going to go back to the 1980s or even before there. And I back then I was younger, but everybody lived an okay life and business happened and all that. So let's go back 30, 40 years ago, forget all about this, and we'll have some peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
Of course, that's not the answer, but it it's like, whoa. I can't, Wi-Fi, and everybody, just a few years ago, the whole county, the whole city should have Wi-Fi. Why should we pay for this? Now, again, as technology grows, right, and becomes more entrenched in our lives, our businesses, there are more, things that we got to consider. And this is why this is so important here. So
yeah, but I don't want to leave you guys too scared. So what I want to say is just a couple
too
of
bad, man. You messed it up. No, I'm kidding.
A couple of basic points is number one, it's very basic for a business. It's in terms of business continuity. You want to know like what are your critical processes. So just like with that on cybersecurity, you want to take an inventory and find out what data do you have that will be sensitive, or think like a hacker. What data do you have that somebody would want to steal or somebody could sell? And you want to next think about how could you protect that. If you have sensitive records, if you have employee health data or client health data or anything, if you have health data, guys, I want to tell you guys, be careful with that, because there's a lot of fines that could come down from the federal government related to HIPAA and some other requirements. But you want to consider storing that offline. Store it where somebody can't get access to it. Also, you just want to think about your office-wide policies. Some very basic things you can do, such as a clean desk policy. Don't keep passwords, don't keep information on your desk in case somebody wanders in. Also, update your antivirus software, your firewall. Scan computers. Make sure any Wi-Fi networks that you have are secure and that they're hidden. But very basic is just talk to your employees. You can talk to your employees about threats that are out there, what you're seeing, what you guys want to do to protect your business. There's also a lot of really great organizations you can join. I mentioned Hack Miami is one here locally that has like hack competitions. It's basically IT security professionals. But also there's locally here in South Florida, InfraGard, which is the FBI kind of public-private partnership. And there is some vetting they have to do, but once you join, they regularly send you updates on potential threats that are out there, and they also have regular meetings. I know they have one coming up in February over in Broward.
Great.
So I'd encourage you to check into that. And
obviously, every one of you that's been listening to this, your eyes have opened up wide, and you're saying, "Oh my God." Let's they say in Apollo 13, let's work the problem, people. Let's not panic here. If you missed any of this here, write to me at peepbizradio.com and we'll get you information. Brian, this has been terrific, buddy.
No, thanks.
And this is important. This is absolutely priority. And I promise you, we're gonna get on this and have regular conversations. So
great.
Thank you, my friend.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Good stuff.